Hi, I'm Mike Franzone, and welcome to Mike Franzone Ministries. Hope you like and subscribe. Today, the truth about socialism. Gallup poll 2018, young Americans 18 to 29 years old. You ready for this? 51% of the young people are positive about socialism. And every other poll I looked at within the last year, 2 years, they pretty much say the same thing. It goes from 44% to 51, even higher, that the young people in that category, 18 to 29 years old, are positive about socialism. All the surveys have pretty much said the same thing over the last several years. It's gotten kind of actually worse. Many reasons for that. I think one reason is the lack of teaching about American exceptionalism in our public schools. I read somewhere too that while we're not doing as good in math and reading, the lowest that the American students are doing it is American history. That we're worse in American history. What you're seeing in the schools today is what we call a revisionist history. Education system in America, I believe, is broke in many areas of the country. Not all areas, but in many areas. They don't understand the history of socialism. And the media, that's another reason why. It's run by the leftists who have infiltrated in the media for over a number of years, and the low IQ politicians who crave power. And what really bothers me is that even Republicans do not know how to explain capitalism, republicanism. They don't understand. They don't have the IQ to even figure that out and explain it in a very cogent way to the American public. And let's not forget dopey Hollywood. That's a whole nother sermon, right? The progressive education in our school system over the years has decried capitalism and praised socialism. Radical left has been calling the shots in our schools and in our children's curriculum for many, many years. It didn't happen overnight. And this perversion in our school system started probably in the 1930s under the tutelage of John Dewey. Now, that's a whole other message, and maybe someday we'll look at that as well. But what happened over history has picked up speed. The progressive spark has been fanned by 90% of the major media, by the Hollywood left, by the pretty much one political party, that's the Democratic Party. So let's look at definitions. First of all, I want to give you the dictionary definition of socialism. I still think it's kind of deceptive. Let me read it to you. Any various economic and political theory advocating collective or government ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. Here's another one. A system or condition of society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the state. Now, all of these capture a part of what socialism is, but the socialist reality is that it actually operates much worse. And those who propose socialism are very deceptive in the way they explain this to the American people, especially to our young people. Today, watch, they're coming out of the closet. The Green New Deal, right? Free healthcare, free education, pay for those who are unwilling to work, free money, tax the rich to the max, phase out airplane travel, make every building in the U.S. environmentally safe, ban cow flatulence. My fart's my choice, as they say. Net zero greenhouse gas in 10 years. Did you realize that a nonpartisan think tank came up that it would cost every American $600,000 to $650,000 a year? This is insanity. This is stupid. This is ridiculous. This is a first grade term paper, if even that. What they don't tell you is that the only ones with an airplane will be the socialist leaders. What the socialists don't tell you is the only ones with money will be the leaders. The only ones with hamburgers will be the socialist leaders. They will be the socialist elites. That's the way it's been over history, and it will continue here. And watch, this is the big lie. Socialism is not a movement of the downtrodden masses. It is a power grab from the economic and political elite. Let me say that again. And this is why you see so much about climate change, because climate change is another step towards socialism. It's a power grab. Listen to this, the big lie. Socialism is not a movement of the downtrodden masses. It is a power grab from the economic and political elite. In reality, it is not a share the wealth program, as we heard from Obama for 8 years. Many rich elites have made their money with capitalism, and yet they praise socialism. Why? Because it's a method of consolidating and controlling wealth and power. The end result is always communism. So socialism is the bait to get you to communism. And the left wants us to get rid of the republic. Why do you think they want to get rid of the electoral college? Because if you get rid of the electoral college, you have what's called a pure democracy, an up and down vote. But a pure democracy has never worked in history. Our founding fathers understood this. And the great experiment of republicanism. Republicanism is a representative form of government, and that's what we are. America is a republic. Pure democracies lead to chaos. Chaos leads to dictatorship or tyrants, and obviously there you have communism / socialism. Now, recently, we have looked at Venezuela. Venezuela is one of many, many, many examples over history. You had one of the richest countries in the world is now one of the poorest and is in complete chaos. Millions, 3.5 million, I believe, have fled the country amid mass starvation and violence after the destructive policies of socialism were enacted. Now, the government gradually seized the private industries and eventually ran the country into the ground. Hugo Rafael Chavez Frias, that's his full name, he began this destruction. In 1999, he told the Venezuelan Congress this, I quote, "The Constitution, and with it the ill-fated political system to which it gave birth 40 years ago, has to die. It is going to die, sirs. Accept it." Chavez succeeded in rewriting the Constitution of Venezuela. And by the way, he promised the people new rights. You ready for this? Free government health care, free college, free social justice, tax the rich. Does that sound familiar? Sounds like the Democratic Party platform to me. They had a popular vote. Chavez changed the Constitution. They had a vote that passed with 72% positive to change the Constitution. He gradually took control of the courts like Franklin Roosevelt tried to do in World War II. He packed the courts with 12 new justices that he personally picked. They were nothing but yes men. And now we have today Nicolas Maduro, the current president of Venezuela. He doubled down on socialism. We have one of the rich and most beautiful countries in the world is an absolute mess. Socialism never works. I believe it was the English historian Lord Acton who said this, power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. To the socialist, the end justifies the means. To lie, to cheat, to steal, to sometimes kill, all in the name of achieving the socialist ends, is all permissible because the end justifies the means. Socialism must first destroy its enemies. And one of the greatest deceptions is the use of the word democracy. Bernie Sanders, and a large number of the Democratic politicians now call themselves Democratic Socialists. Has kind of a nice ring to it, but it's deceptive. You go back into the early 1900s and an ideological war began. The word democracy became one of the casualties. Today our schools have misinterpreted out of ignorance, and I believe sometimes on purpose. They taught our students that America is a democracy. Now, the word democracy didn't describe America. We are a constitutional republic. Democratic Socialist is a term that Lenin and Stalin used. Think of the Nazis. Who were the Nazis? You say they were right-wingers? Let me tell you what the Nazis means a National Socialist German Workers' Party. The Nazis were socialists. And throughout Europe, they use democratic socialists even today. The media, the politicians, the educators have created a subtle change in the American mindset. We're a democracy. No, we are a republic. And in our early history, even back, when the Constitution was first written, there were those who tried to push the word democracy to describe the U.S. What that was, it was actually an attack on the constitutional structure of the government and the basic rights it was designed to protect. I'm going to give you a very brief history lesson, if I will, if you don't mind. Here it is. 100 years of communism and 100 million dead. The Bolshevik Revolution that began right around the middle, towards the end of World War I, that began in Russia, was the greatest tragedy, I believe, in human history. And this communism/socialism spread to the Soviet Union, Eastern Europe, China, Cuba, North Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia. 100 million dead because of socialism. And that's conservative. Socialism does not work, and it always turns to violence. And here's another little tidbit I want to give you. Now, that might be another message. People say, well, we got to be like Norway, be like Sweden. They're socialists. No, they're not. And they will tell you they're not. These small countries have some socialistic ideas and some things that they have incorporated, but they use capitalist ideas to grow the country. Both socialism and communism require a commitment to the use of force. All socialist programs are mandatory, i.e., the Obamacare mandate. If you don't get Obamacare, remember that? And the Supreme Court supported it. If you don't get Obamacare, or health care, we will penalize you. That's mandatory. If you're going to take a guy's money, you better be committed to using force. So, let me give you the death breakdown real quick here. 100 years of socialism, 100 million dead. 40 to 70 million killed in China under Mao. 20 million killed in the USSR under Stalin. Another 40 million killed under other USSR leaders. 4 million killed under Pol Pot in Cambodia. 1.6 million murdered and 4 million killed in labor camps in North Korea. 1.15 million killed in Yugoslavia under Tito, a communist. 1 million killed in Ethiopia in the 1970s under the communist Red Terror. 1 million killed in Indonesia under Suharto, who was a communist. 1 million killed in Afghanistan in that genocide, 1979-1981. Do you remember that? 800,000 killed in Rwanda under a socialist. Hitler killed 18 to 21 million Jews, Poles, Gypsies, homosexuals, Soviet civilians, and prisoners. To the communists, to the socialists, the end always justifies the means. Now let me conclude this. In the Communist Manifesto, there are 3 things that must be accomplished to achieve the socialist dictatorship. Well, listen real close. Just sounds just exactly like the Democratic Party platform. Number 1, the elimination of the right to private property. Stalin, Mao, Hitler They all did that. In Africa, we'll see that today. And not only did they eliminate the right to have private property, they also took the guns away. The mayor of New York talked about, the communist mayor, I say Comrade de Blasio. This is what he said. He would love to take away private property from the citizens. The Dems want to get rid of the Second Amendment. Because, my friend, if they're coming after your property, we won't be able to defend ourselves if we don't have any weapons to defend ourselves. That's the Second Amendment. Here's the second thing that the Communist Manifesto says. In order to enact and accomplish these things and get communism and socialism to take over a country, number 2, the dissolution of the family unit. Now you hear Elizabeth Warren, the government-run daycare. I hear Comrade Ocasio in New York says, maybe it's a good idea not to have any more children. Abortion, infanticide. There's another message we could speak about. All of this is the dissolving of the family unit. And number 3, the destruction of religion. Marx called religion the opiate of the people. You remember the famous book, the brothers Karamazov, I think by Fyodor Dostoevsky. He wrote in that book this key quote: "If God does not exist, everything is permitted. If God does not exist, everything is permitted. If God does not exist, everything is permitted." The Democrats voted to kill babies after they're born. And they voted God out of the party platform, if you remember. There's an old expression: socialism breeds mediocrity, capitalism breeds exceptionalism. But it breeds more than mediocrity. Socialism breeds violence and evil and slavery and tyrants and death. And America's youngest generation is ignorant of the crimes of socialism/communism. It's not being taught in schools. Stupid politicians are not telling them the truth. And if we want to put this ideology on the ash heap of history, we must warn a new generation. We have a mandate and a responsibility to tell the truth. I think of 1 Corinthians 14:8. If the bugle gives an indistinct sound, who will get ready for the battle? My friend, we have to blow a clear and distinct warning to this generation. We need to sound the warning loud and clear that socialism is death. I love what President Trump said, that America will never be a socialist country. Let's pray for that. All right, I'm Mike Franzone, Mike Franzone Ministries. Hope you like and subscribe. God bless.